In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Beneficent. Now the main headlines. Ankara, Academic Forum for Women on the Biography and Virtues of Lady Zainab, peace be upon her. New Zealand, Afghan Hazara community in a state of shock after young woman killed. Spanish ambassador to Iraq visits Kadhimiya Holy Shrine. The United Nations is sounding the alarm. 6 million Syrians need urgent assistance. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, dear viewers. This is Ayub Nouinou and you are watching Shia Waves live from Imam Hussein TV 3. The Turkish capital, Ankara, witnessed the establishment of a women's academic forum to shed light on the most important defining stations in the life of Lady Zainab, peace be upon her, on her blessed birth anniversary. The Dogro Haber daily newspaper, which covered the activities of the forum, said in a news report, the establishment of this specialized academic event, sponsored by the Muhibi al-Rasul Islamic Foundation, took place in the hall of the poet Isrufugul Rumi in the famous historical Haji Bayram Valley Mosque in the center of the Turkish capital. The report added, the forum was opened with a blessed Quranic recitation by Fatima Karslan Hajja, followed by an introductory speech by the representative of the Muhibi al-Rasul Islamic Foundation in Ankara, Oznur Koyuncu, through which she presented detailed information about the work and activities of the foundation. The Turkish newspaper continued, among the activities of the forum is reciting a poem in praise of Lady Zainab, peace be upon her, by the poet Nisanhor Ozadash, in addition to a speech by one of the coordinators of the forum, researcher Hamira Yilmaz, in which she mentioned some of the virtues and knowledge of Lady Zainab, peace be upon her. In her speech, Yilmaz described the granddaughter of the Messenger of God, peace be upon them, as being perfect in everything, as she is the intelligent, emotional, and extremely wise, in addition to being extremely brave following the martyrdom of her family at the Battle of Karbala. The Dogro Haber newspaper indicated that the forum's activities concluded with a cinematic show and poetry recitals organized by a group of lovers of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family, in praise of his blessed granddaughter, peace be upon her. The Afghan Hazara community in Auckland is in a state of shock and grief after the killing of a young woman in Massey, according to the New Zealand Herald. An Afghan Hazara leader in Auckland, the capital, told the Herald, a sense of fear and shock has once again washed through this community, the members of which fled Taliban persecution for a safe life in New Zealand. The newspaper added that the Hazara community's fear increased after the Shia woman Farzana Yaqubi was killed by a 30-year-old Indian man on Monday. It's understood the woman was a law student at AUT and has been planning a religious pilgrimage to Iraq next week, according to the New Zealand Herald. Asadullah Nazari, president of the Hazara Afghan Association Incorporated, said that the distress of the community was compounded by the grief and worry they still felt from the Christchurch mosque attacks and the fact that they had no idea of the motivation for the young woman's killing. The Spanish ambassador to Iraq, Mr. Pedro Martinez, and his accompanying delegation had the honor of visiting the Kadhimiya Holy Shrine and were warmly received by the Deputy Secretary General of the Holy Shrine. The delegation toured the archaeological, historical, and Islamic architecture and monuments around the Holy Shrine. The ambassador confirmed that it was a special day for him and expressed his admiration of the Holy Shrine and thanked the officials and employees at the shrine for the warm hospitality. Let us remind our respected viewers of today's headlines. Ankara, Academic Forum for Women on the biography and virtues of Lady Zainab, peace be upon her. New Zealand, Afghan Hazara community in a state of shock after young woman killed. Spanish ambassador to Iraq visits Kazimiya Holy Shrine. Also tonight, Office of Grand Ayatollah Shirazi in Qom holds mourning ceremony on demise of Grand Ayatollah al-Rouhani. Since 2011, Syria has been facing a humanitarian and economic crisis due to wars, conflict and terrorism. The United Nations is saying that the situation needs urgent attention, as over 6 million Syrians need urgent assistance. More details in the following report.
The United Nations Secretary-General's envoy to Syria, Geir Pedersen, said that the Syrians are facing a worsening humanitarian and economic crisis inside and outside the country, while the Assistant Secretary-General for Humanitarian Affairs, Martin Griffiths, confirmed that 6 million Syrians need urgent assistance this winter. The current situation in Syria is the result of more than a decade of war and conflict, corruption and mismanagement, the Lebanese financial crisis, the coronavirus, sanctions, and the repercussions of the war in Ukraine. Pedersen said during his regular briefing to the UN Secretary Council in New York. The UN envoy stopped at the very difficult humanitarian situation and drew attention to the severe shortage of fuel, including heating oil, and pointed to the lack of clean water and healthcare. The UN official also referred to the closure of official departments for several days due to the lack of energy, as some civil servants cannot get to work due to the lack of fuel, and indicated that the aggravation of the crisis is manifested in Damascus through a number of things, including dark streets and unlit houses, less traffic, and the depreciation of the Syrian pound to new records. For his part, Assistant Secretary-General for Humanitarian Affairs Martin Griffiths said, "The continuation of hostilities has taken a heavy toll, especially along the front lines, with at least 138 civilians killed and 249 injured between January and November in northwestern Syria alone." Griffiths stressed that the number of people in need of humanitarian aid has risen to 14.6 million, an increase of 1.2 million compared to last year, and it is expected to reach 15.3 million in 2023. "We have not seen such figures since the beginning of the crisis in Syria in 2011, he said. He stressed that more than half of the Syrians in the country, more than 12 million, struggle to provide food, and warned that nearly 3 million Syrians could slip into food insecurity. The UN official also stressed the continued deterioration of the social and economic conditions and pointed to a number of factors that play a role in this, in addition to the conflict, including inflation, which is more evident in the continued depreciation of the local currency at a time when food and fuel prices continue to rise globally, which puts basic foodstuffs and other necessities out of reach for millions of Syrian families. Reporting Aruj Fatma Malik, Shia Waves.
And now we continue some short news stories. Shia followers of the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, in Iraq and the Islamic world renewed their condolences to Imam al-Mahdi, may Allah hasten his honourable reappearance, on the martyrdom anniversary of the jurist of the Ahlul Bayt, His Eminence Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Rida al-Hussein Shirazi. The Grand Shirazi jurist died on the 26th of the month of Jumad al-Awwal of the year 1429 AH, which was the year 2008. in the holy city of Qom in mysterious circumstances and most likely was killed by the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them, departing this world as a martyr. The Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Rida al-Hussein al-Shirazi is the eldest son of the late religious authority Imam Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad al-Hussein al-Shirazi, who is the elder brother of the Supreme Religious Authority, His Eminence Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sadiq al-Hussein al-Shirazi. Malaysian towns were left inundated with muddy water in the wake of torrential rains, footage shared on social media showed on Wednesday, forcing more than 72,000 people to evacuate as rainfall and floods were forecast to persist. At least 2 people have died as floods hit 5 states this week, and authorities have set up hundreds of relief shelters as the number of people displaced grows. Experts have said rapid urbanization and conversion of forests into settlements and industrial agriculture have made even inland areas, including capital city Kuala Lumpur, increasingly vulnerable to extreme floods as rainstorms intensify due to climate change. The United Nations Secretary General urged Afghanistan's Taliban rulers to include all ethnic groups in the government, restore girls' rights to education at all levels and women's rights to work, and to stop all terrorist activity on its territory. Guterres also had some advice for the managers of all social media platforms, including Twitter, saying, "You have a responsibility to preserve freedom of the press and at the same time ensure that hate speech and extremist views, including of neo-Nazis and white supremacists, don't find their way onto your platforms." The Islamic World Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, otherwise known as ISESCO, plans to set up a fund for supporting elites and talented figures in the Muslim world. This was announced in a recent meeting of the ministers of the organization's member states, Sputnik reported. It said the meeting was held in Rabat, Morocco's capital, to discuss mechanism for supporting the Islamic world's talented individuals. ISESCO Secretary General Salim Muhammad Al-Malik said the fund will help promote innovation among people in the member states. He said the members of the organization have extensively supported the initiative. ISESCO has previously introduced numerous plans to support research studies in the Muslim world, especially among university students. The body is an international organization working within the framework of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, specializing in the fields of education, science, culture, and communication. New York in the USA will spend $50 million to spruce up 90 middle and high school cafeterias by the end of the year, with grab-and-go options and new kinds of seating. Along with expanding halal meat options, officials say it's a way to encourage more students to grab a bite to eat. At Hillcrest High School in Queens, students have a range of options for lunch every day, which they can quickly grab from a setup that looks more like a food court than an old school cafeteria. The city will spend $50 million to spruce up 90 middle and high school cafeterias by the end of the year. The enhanced cafeterias have grab-and-go options and new kinds of seating, and advocates say they make children more likely to eat lunch. The city is also expanding the availability of halal meals, with 79 kitchens certified to serve them so far. Students say they hope the availability of halal food expands to every school where a student needs it. The Office of the Supreme Religious Authority, His Eminence Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sadiq al-Hussein al-Shirazi, in the holy city of Qom, will hold a one-week mourning ceremony on the demise of Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Sadiq al-Rouhani, may Allah bless his soul. The office said in a statement received by Shia Waves news agency that the mourning ceremony will be held this evening, Thursday, near the holy shrine of Lady Fatima al-Ma'sooma, peace be upon her. The Office of the Supreme Religious Authority, Grand Ayatollah Shirazi, offered condolences on the passing of Grand Ayatollah al-Rouhani, who spent his life in service of the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them. Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Muhammad Sadiq al-Rouhani passed away last Friday and was buried in the holy courtyard of the shrine of the Lady Fatima al-Ma'suma in Holy Qom, Iran. Students of the Al-Muhaqqiq Al-Karaki Seminary, affiliated with the Shirazi Religious Authority, continued their seminary studies for the evening period, which began at the end of the month of Rabi' al-Thani of the academic year 1444 AH. The seminary's deanship stated in a statement received by Shia Waves news agency that the seminary studies continue with the blessings of Allah Almighty and the infallible Imams, peace be upon them, noting that the evening classes run from Saturday to Wednesday. The statement added, on a daily basis, the seminary continues its seminary lessons, as the preliminary stage was opened that includes simplified lessons in beliefs, grammar, and the biography of the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them. It continued, weekly lessons are also given in various religious sciences, such as contemplation of the Holy Quran, Hadith, ethics, and others. The statement indicated that the Blessed Seminary continues this great effort with the directives of the Supreme Religious Authority, His Eminence Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Sadiq al-Hussein al-Shirazi, who recommends attracting young believers to teach them the religion and provide them with the knowledge of the pure progeny, peace be upon them. We have reached the end of today's Shia Wave show. Let's remind our viewers of today's headlines. Ankara, Academic Forum for Women on the biography and virtues of Lady Zainab, peace be upon her. New Zealand, Afghan Hazara community in a state of shock after young woman killed. Spanish ambassador to Iraq visits Kazimiya Holy Shrine. The United Nations is sounding the alarm. 6 million Syrians need urgent assistance. Office of Grand Ayatollah Shirazi al-Qom holds mourning ceremony on the demise of Grand Ayatollah al-Rouhani. The Seminary of Al-Muhaqqiq Al-Karaki in Karbala continues its seminary studies for the evening period. You can view the latest news on Shia Waves website, and you can send news of your city or country to be published on our news agency. Please contact us on the number at the bottom of the screen. This is the end of today's news program, and thank you all for watching. We pray to Allah Almighty to hasten the reappearance of the Master of our time. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
اللهم إني أسألك الأمان